Trump's immigration crackdown, 12,000 deportations in a month. What's next? In recent weeks, the United States has witnessed significant policy changes under President Donald Trump's administration, affecting federal labor standards, international trade relations, and immigration enforcement. These developments have sparked debates over their long-term implications for both domestic and global economies. Federal contractor minimum wage reduction. On March 14, 2025, President Trump issued Executive Order 114236, which rescinds the previous administration's Executive Order 14226. This order had established a minimum wage of $17.75 per hour for federal contractors. By eliminating this mandate, businesses will now have the discretion to set their own pay rates for workers on federal contracts without a federal wage floor. This decision has raised concerns, particularly for workers in sectors like janitorial, services and construction, where federal contracts are common and wages are often low. Critics argue that without a guaranteed minimum wage, these workers could face significant pay reductions. While businesses might argue that this change promotes growth and flexibility, it risks exacerbating income inequality and exposing low-income workers to exploitation. By eliminating the federal mandate, the Trump administration has shifted the responsibility for fair compensation away from the government, placing it in the hands of private companies, which may prioritize profits over worker welfare. Privatization of Amtrak and the US Postal Service. Billionaire entrepreneur Elon Musk has recently voiced his support for privatizing Amtrak and the US Postal Service, calling both entities inefficient and costly. Musk's stance has rekindled the debate on whether private enterprise could offer better services and lower costs than government-run operations. Amtrak, which provides essential rail services across the US, has long struggled with profitability, relying on federal subsidies. Musk argues that privatization could lead to improved services and reduced costs. However, critics worry that privatizing such services could reduce accessibility, particularly in rural areas where private companies may find it less profitable to operate. The US Postal Service also faces similar challenges, with declining mail volumes and rising costs. While privatization could reduce some of these costs, it may lead to higher prices for consumers and reduced service levels, particularly for low-income individuals who depend on affordable mail delivery. While privatization advocates argue that competition could drive efficiency, opponents fear that profit motives may lead to service cuts and increased prices, undermining the public service role of these institutions. The debate over privatization remains a central issue, with strong opinions on both sides regarding its potential to improve or harm the quality of service. Immigration enforcement and deportations. In March 2025, the Trump administration continued its aggressive immigration enforcement policies, with U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE, reporting over 12,300 deportations in that month. This marks a slight increase from February and reflects the ongoing priority given to stricter immigration control. While the administration frames these actions as necessary for national security, critics argue that such policies disrupt communities and the economy. Many sectors such as agriculture, construction, and hospitality rely heavily on immigrant labor, particularly from undocumented workers. These industries may suffer from labor shortages if deportations continue at this rate. Moreover, deportations lead to family separations and financial instability, with many workers sending money home to their families in other countries. The removal of these workers not only impacts their families but also destabilizes economies in countries that rely heavily on remittances, such as Mexico and Central American nations. Despite the administration's claims that these actions are necessary for maintaining border security, the consequences for the U.S. economy and for immigrant communities are significant. The debate over immigration policy remains polarized, with supporters arguing for stronger enforcement and critics calling for a more humane and economically sensitive approach, trade tensions and tariffs. In April 2025, President Trump declared a national emergency, imposing a 10% tariff on all imports under the International Emergency Economic Powers Act. The justification for this move was national security concerns, but it has caused significant friction with key trading partners including Canada, Mexico, and China. The imposition of tariffs has raised fears of a trade war, particularly with China, which has already retaliated with tariffs on U.S. goods. The U.S. and China are major trading partners, and escalating tariffs could harm both economies by disrupting global supply chains and increasing costs for consumers. The tariffs also affect Canada and Mexico, who are critical trade partners for the U.S. The additional costs imposed on businesses could lead to higher prices for everyday goods, affecting consumers and manufacturers alike. While tariffs are intended to protect U.S. industries from foreign competition, critics argue that they disproportionately harm consumers and small businesses. Higher prices on goods could lead to reduced spending power, affecting the broader economy. Moreover, tariffs could lead to retaliation from other countries, further destabilizing global trade. Experts warn that these protectionist policies could lead to a prolonged trade war that would harm both the U.S. and global economies in the long term. The effects of the tariff strategy remain uncertain, but it is clear that such policies are contributing to growing tensions between the U.S. and its trading partners. The shift towards protectionism marks a dramatic change in U.S. trade policy, with potentially far-reaching consequences for both the U.S. economy and international relations. The recent policy shifts by the Trump administration have sparked significant debate over their potential impacts. While aimed at addressing domestic concerns, these changes have far-reaching implications that could affect workers, international relations, and the global economy. As discussions continue, it remains to be seen how these policies will shape the future of the United States and its role in the world.